Biden said, first off, he said he's going to hire a black female for vice president, and that he just skipped over. What about white females? What about any other group? When you go down that route, you take mediocrity, and that's what they have right now as a vice president.
So are you suggesting she was a DEI hire?
100%. She was a DEI hire. He said he was going to hire, and she didn't. Her record is abysmal at best.
After about a day of work, Vice President Harris secured enough delegates to become the Democratic Party's presumptive nominee for president. And the GOP response is nothing but racism and misogyny. We're talking the Republicans' firm grip on bigotry on this watch list.
The incompetency level is at an all-time high, and I look at this thing from the assassination attempt to the convention to the internet breaking down to the Biden administration breaking down, and the best they can do is Kamala Harris. She was a disaster on the border. She never even, I don't know if she could find the border with a compass and a map. And so I think, the Democrats are making their bed.
Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett isn't a fan of Kamala Harris, just like he isn't a fan of giving a shit about children being shot and killed in a school in Tennessee.
It's a horrible, horrible situation, and we're not going to fix it. Criminals are going to be criminals. I don't see any real role that we could do other than mess things up. If somebody wants to take you out and doesn't mind losing their life, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it. There's really, I don't think you're going to stop the gun violence. I think you've got to change people's hearts.
What should be done to protect people like your little girl from being safe at school?
Well, we homeschool her, but, that's our decision.
Yeah, every time I talk about Burchett, I have to remind y'all that he relishes in watching American children be murdered while he boasts about being able to shield his daughter from the guns that he refuses to do anything about. But anyway, back to the latest obsession to ignore all dog whistles and use the Republican Party's tagline for anyone that isn't a straight, white, Christian man.
Ms. Cheadle, you said that the buck stops with me, and I agree. I don't think you should resign. I think you should have been fired. Ma'am, you are a DEI horror story. I've told my daughter multiple times, my wife and my daughter, we talk to her all the time about how she's going to succeed in life. She'll succeed in life by achieving. Ma'am, you have not achieved today. You've let the American public down. If it was up to me, you'd be gone.
I guess since calling everything woke eventually got them nowhere, the Republican Party figured that characterizing things that they're afraid of as DEI was the next best thing. See, they need to make sure that the rabidly racist base that they've energized under Donald Trump gets their daily supply of hatred so much they don't even realize how incredibly out of touch they are. And now that they have to pay attention to a black woman, they almost seem excited to offer up as many played-out racial characterizations as they can.
Our likely opponent, Kamala Harris, because, she said a couple of days ago that I showed no loyalty to the United States, that I have no loyalty to the United States. Well, I don't know Kamala. I served in the United States Marine Corps, and I built a business. What the hell have you done other than collect a government check for the past 20 years?
Yeah, this head nod to the endlessly debunked welfare queen attack on black women is really all this party has. That line was inserted into the teleprompter for J.D. Vance to read as a standard attack line that the party figures will attract voters. It's a blatant admission that despite the pearl clutching over being called out, they think the country is a racist place. And they want as many racists as possible to know that they are too.
Kamala Harris has become the presumptive nominee. Some of your colleagues have been criticizing her over the issue of diversity. Tim Burchett said that she was a DEI hire. Is that appropriate?
Listen, this election, as I noted at the outset, is going to be about policies, not personalities. This is not personal with regard to Kamala Harris, and her ethnicity or her gender have nothing to do with this whatsoever. This is about who can deliver for the American people and get us out of the mess that we're in. Every area of public policy is a disaster because the Biden-Harris administration made it that way.
So the monotone Speaker of the House thinks that being boring will freeze people's brains so that they won't realize that he almost never answers a question about his party's issues. How do you go on a full court press of disparaging Harris for being a black woman and then claim this isn't about her being a black woman? But don't forget, Mike Johnson wants you to know that this isn't about the personalities of the election. It's about policy. Nothing to do with personalities at all. They just worship a reality TV personality as the second coming of Jesus, with no mention of his disastrous policies.
A lot of conservatives have said we should deconstruct the administrative state. We should basically eliminate the administrative state. And I'm sympathetic to that project, but another option is that we should just seize the administrative state for our own purposes. We should fire all of the people. I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people. And when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
It's weird how that Project 2025 idea to fill the government with loyalist swamp creatures that Trump actually tried to implement at the end of his term keeps popping up in their proposed plans for the future. But anyway, back to their same attack lines.
Is there anyone that you see challenging Harris that could potentially overpower, like that you think more people could get behind?
I know there are some Democrats who don't like her, and she has the obvious weakness at the border, as well as she hasn't been the most articulate candidate so far. But apparently they feel, or a lot of Democrats feel, they have to stick with her because of her ethnic background. And so I'm sure there's some division there on that issue.
Just a little bit of blatant projection from Representative Grothman, who somehow forgot that outside of the disaster that was Sarah Palin, his Republican Party has never had a presidential ticket that didn't consist of white men. So I guess Trump had to go with J.D. Vance because of his ethnic background. And ironically, the one aspect of Vance's personal identity that isn't white is exactly what his base has an issue with.
J.D. Vance also has a non-white wife, an Indian wife, and a kid named Vivek. All his kids have Indian names. So it's like, what exactly are we getting here? And that's not a dig at him just because I'm a racist or something. But it's like, who is this guy really? Do we really expect that the guy who has an Indian wife and named their kid Vivek is going to support white identity? Like, there's a white genocide going on in the world. White people are being systematically replaced in America and Europe through immigration and to a much lesser extent due to intermarrying. This guy has a non-white wife and a kid named Vivek. This guy is going to be a defender of white identity? I don't think so. This guy's going to defend American identity? If he does, it's going to be no better than any of these other civic nationalists like Vivek Ramaswamy. How else could you countenance American identity if you have a mixed up family like that?
Listen, it's about time we stop acting like this Republican Party isn't the party of white supremacy. It's not just pundits or rabid supporters that jump on social media to spew their hatred. It's baked into the speeches and policy positions of their elected officials all the way up to the presidential ticket. So seeing Vice President Kamala Harris step in triggers their uncontrollable reaction to focus solely on how much they can't stand that a black woman has the nerve to challenge what they consider superior.
So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And in this campaign, I will proudly put my record against his. As a young prosecutor, when I was in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office in California, I specialized in cases involving sexual abuse. Donald Trump was found liable by a jury for committing sexual abuse. As Attorney General of California, I took on one of our country's largest for-profit colleges and put it out of business. Donald Trump ran a for-profit college, Trump University, that was forced to pay $25 million to the students it scammed. As district attorney, to go after polluters, I created one of the first environmental justice units in our nation. Donald Trump stood in Mar-a-Lago and told big oil lobbyists he would do their bidding for a $1 billion campaign contribution. During the foreclosure crisis, I took on the big Wall Street banks and won $20 billion for California families, holding those banks accountable for fraud. Donald Trump was just found guilty of 34 counts of fraud.